how do I say your name?
So my name is Irvine.
Irvine? Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you.
No, that's all right. So I guess I wanted to give you a call. I think Hannah would have told you about my sort of author acceleration program, which I'm trying to kind of get members of industry to kind of maybe answer a few questions about young adult and children's writing, so that my students can, benefit from that and learn from you.
How old are your students?
So usually I've got anywhere from like year 2 up until like year 12 type sort of situations. I've got like quite a range of students, but I do have like some students who are interested in publication, and they just don't know where to go. Like they don't know what to do. So so I just thought I'd give you a call, and maybe, if you have any advice or anything that would be useful for them to know, like, for example, what sort of storytelling elements or themes are currently resonating at the moment in like for children's publishing, and what topics to write about, what sort of books are you acquiring, and what's your sort of acquisition process? Why do you acquire certain books and not other books?
They're all big questions.
I know, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. They're big questions, and in some ways there are... the tricky thing with children's is there's multiple answers, because covers everything from picture books through to junior fiction, middle grade, young adult, non-fiction. So it's kind of really broad answers. Yeah. So if you have specific questions, because I guess I'm looking for different things in those different categories.
Oh, okay. So, for example, for young adult, what would you say? What would you say you're kind of looking for in the young adult space? Let's narrow it down a little bit.
Yeah. Well, obviously TikTok is huge, and romantasy is huge for TikTok readers. So any kind of big romantasy is going to be appealing. Mm-hmm. We don't get a lot of those, and we find. If we get a really exciting romantasy, we try and team up with our UK and US colleagues and do sort of a global release, so that we have cut through in that book talk space. But I personally, so I think trends are great, but I wouldn't write only to trends unless that's your real area of interest. If it is, then great, because I, as a publisher, am not going to turn down like a contemporary realistic YA if it's brilliant just because romantasy is trending. I think there's a space for both. So it's a bit of a cliche, but writing what you know and what you love is not, I think, is the best way to go, because it will resonate with somebody.
Right. Okay. So, for example, what you're saying is that, yes, trends are important, but if it's not your forte to do romantasy, don't just start writing romantasy.
Yes,
because
absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Because I mean, like, as a writer myself, I find, like, yes, I am kind of writing a fantasy, not necessarily a romantasy, but it's like a fantasy fiction sort of piece, and I often wonder, like, is anyone going to read this, and am I just going to be writing this for like the next year? And how do we get past that sort of, like, because it's like, stay motivated, but you never know, like, if the publisher's actually going to take on your piece.
Oh, it's so hard. I really feel for you actually being on the other side of it. And there are also, I guess, knowing the different publishers and what they publish and what they like, which can be really hard to work out. I know even at Hachette, we're an international company. If you looked at our website, it's harder to know what our Australian books are and which Australian publishers to target. But we're actually working on making that a bit clearer. And different. Look, a lot of people also, and TikTok has been really it's leveled the playing field a bit. You can self-publish or put something out yourself, and then if it gains traction, very quickly a publisher will knock on your door. So I think those non-traditional paths to publishing are becoming actually a lot more lucrative.
Okay, that's interesting. So you think as a publisher, you're saying that, if the book gains traction when it's self-published, then that is is that kind of like a sales history? Is that what you mean?
Yes, absolutely. That becomes really appealing to us, and that has not always been the case. Whereas now, I guarantee as soon as somebody is big on TikTok, they will have everybody chasing them to publish that book traditionally, and people don't even always want to be published traditionally.
Really?
In that case anymore. There are different arguments about it because you can control how quickly your books come out if you're doing it yourself, and if you've got a dedicated audience already. And as soon as you join not trying to talk anyone out of traditional publishing, we have long lead times and we have schedules, and you might be on a roll with a book series and then it's acquired by a publisher and the next one won't come out for 2 years, and that's frustrating if you're used to controlling your own publication speed. Anyway, not to talk you out of... There's a lot of things that traditional publishing can do.
Yeah. Distribution
and marketing and publicity and all of that. So I'm not trying to talk anyone out of it. But I just think the models are changing, and there are more opportunities beyond traditional publishing as well.
So when you say you guys do like marketing and publicity, would you say you do a combination of the two? Like in your marketing plans for YA books, would you say that there's like a balance between, when you say publicity, you mean just getting the book into as many magazines as possible, or?
That's part of it, but it's also, especially in children's, a big part of it for us is getting authors into schools, getting authors into festivals,
right.
Getting them onto podcasts or radio interviews, depending where they are and how big the book is for us, how big we see the book, touring them to bookstores in different states. So there's quite a bit that can go into publicity, and I'm not saying that every book gets the same amount of publicity, but every book will have a publicity campaign, a marketing campaign, a sales campaign.
Right. Okay. So there's quite a few levels of complexity to, like, definitely the marketing and sales of it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Not every book is treated equally, and I would be lying if that was the case. We acquire books at different levels, and depending on how many we think will sell of a book, it does determine the budget it gets for marketing and publicity, but every book will get a budget and will get a campaign.
Okay. And with so you mentioned that not all books get the same sort of, budget, but I also wanted to ask, when you say that, yes, there's a sales campaign, is that just like when you're selling to different bookstores and libraries? Is that what you mean by the sales campaign, or is it something else?
Yeah, and the retailer's the sales target, but also sales will look at which retailer catalogues a book goes in, or so there's also a sales spend and certain sales things that they can do for different books as well. There are sales conferences, there are teacher and librarian conferences. So this is, again, there's no one answer to anything. Every book is a different case, and I guess my role as a publisher is to champion a book even in-house before it goes out into the world, and that in some ways determines how it gets sold, how it gets marketed, how it gets publicized.
Okay. And just as a kind of something for writers to kind of, I guess, motivate them, what do you look for when you're acquiring a YA book? Do you pay in advance to the author, or would you recommend getting an agent over going directly to the publisher, or like is it like the agents are completely necessary these days and you need them to sort of negotiate for you?
I think it depends how comfortable you are negotiating and how comfortable you are with terms in a contract. But really, I think agents are brilliant. If you have direct contacts with the publisher, then you in terms of getting in front of an agent, a publisher, you don't need an agent, although I would say that I'm going to look at an agented submission before I get to an unsolicited submission, a submission that just comes to me because somebody's found my email address. I with having so much to read, I will prioritise probably an agented submission over something else. Then again, there are other ways as well. There are things like pitch sessions that you can do. CYA run pitch sessions, and the APA, and if you get an opportunity to do a 2-minute pitch to a publisher, and we take those all the time. We do them every year. Speed dating, where literary speed dating, where people pitch their manuscripts and then they might send them to us afterwards. And so if I've already met the person, then I'll look at those manuscripts as well. But again, probably after agented submissions. It's just because we get so many, there has to be some way to filter them through. Yeah.
What's the CYA? Is that, I know CYA and APA, are those?
Australian Publishers Association is APA.
Yeah.
CYA, oh God, what does it stand for now?
That's all right. The children's...
Probably. So I can send you a link if it's...
yeah, I'll
writers and illustrators. So even if you Google CYA conference, you'll get it'll come up. But okay. I can send you a link as well.
That's all right. I'll look it up after. But also, I find that I just wanted to ask as well, because I've always been interested in business strategy and stuff. So I just wonder, when you price a book, especially a YA book, I notice it's different to adult fiction. You've got $16.99, $17.99, that sort of $24.99 pricing. Is there any reason why the YA is cheaper than the adult fiction, or is that just
that's a good question. Affordability and accessibility. I mean, when realistically parents are probably paying, but our YA is usually $19.99, and then retailers price them their own way. Let's say. It's a really good question actually, but I guess it is that idea that teens might have their own money and they're not going to have as much money as adults.
Okay, all right. So because it's targeted at teens, you're trying to accommodate.
Yes, because if you look at picture books, they used to be $32.99, which is really expensive. The average now is $24.99 because kids aren't buying those, parents are. Whereas with teens, there's some hope that they might spend their own hard-earned money.
They might be working down at McDonald's or something, and then they're like, I want to buy a book. And no, that's fair, because I mean, when you see sort of the children that are working are getting younger and younger, you go to McDonald's and you see a 13-year-old
I know
working. So no, that makes sense. Yeah, you're like, what are you doing out of school? No. Oh gosh. So I guess authors. I think they have there's a lot of courses around how to write. It's mainly just how do we move on from that stage of having written our manuscript, and now we want to brand ourselves online. We want to make sure that our book is being seen, so it's being publicized. And there's been to a few writing conferences, and they always say your marketing is up to you. I know the publisher is going to do some marketing for you, but you need to jump on the bandwagon and actually put your marketing hat on, put your business hat on, and see how you can sell your book and increase sales as well. So what would you say to that for authors who are they shy away from sort of marketing their own books and things like that?
Yeah.
How would you approach?
To some extent that is true. But it's not that you have to be constantly creating content on your channel necessarily. I think it's more that you are open to doing things that a publisher might ask you to do, like going to a festival, like going to bookstores, that you become really active in the children's book community, because especially in Australia, if you're in, like, for example, joining the Children's Book Council, your local Children's Book Council branch, and going along to those events, because you will, once you're in that community, it's a really supportive community of writers, and then they all promote each other's work and turn up to each other's launches. And it's more, not so much about creating content and doing your own marketing, because your publisher should give you the assets and help you with that, but just being up for being part of the community, having those conversations, going, if a publisher wants you to go into a school, like, to be quite active in the book world, I suppose. For me, anyway, that makes a big difference.
Okay. And do you, when you say being active in the book world, going into schools, would you then say the author should build relationships with schools and try to... Not
well, I mean, you can join a speakers agency, and that's all, we always recommend that an author does that, and then the speakers agency will say do bookings for you during book week in schools. But it's more, I think more, it's important to join your local CBCA, if Children's Book Council, and go to those and be active in that way, and even online supporting other authors and illustrators who, because you start to see everybody will follow each other and be part of that supportive community, and it builds everybody up in that way.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
You know, that makes a lot of sense. And do you find that, like, when you're kind of sitting there creating your marketing strategy, your sales strategy, all of that, what do you find is the most effective? What are some of the strategies that you use that yield the most sort of return on investment in terms of, like, book sales?
Well, that's a great question that I'm probably not the most qualified to answer.
No, that's okay. I just thought... But
obviously, things like being on breakfast TV, that's always a nice bump.
Yeah.
I have an author, Sammy Bailey, she's an author and an illustrator, and she does illustrated encyclopedias. She's got a natural history illustration degree. She started out when she was 21, still at uni, and has just built for herself a very successful, her books for us have been really successful, and she, to me, is a really good example of someone who's done all of these things. So she was lucky. Her first book, The Illustrated Encyclopedia of Ugly Animals, got on breakfast TV, got a lot of media, and she embraced all of that. She joined the Children's Book Council. They embraced her. She was shortlisted for things.
Yeah.
She said yes to every opportunity. She promotes on her own social media. She befriended other people in the book world. Her second book came along and she already had those contacts, and she built on them, and she went back on breakfast TV, and now she pretty much makes a living doing workshops that she organises herself through her website, in schools, in communities. She's constantly booked out, and she's built her whole career by embracing all of those opportunities and kind of amplifying what we do and doing it herself and being really active. So to me, she's a really great example of someone who was, at uni in 21, and now this is her career.
Amazing.
Yeah, she's brilliant, and it's possible. You can do it.
Yeah, awesome. That's great. That's what I want to kind of project to students that think that, like, I think there's kind of that mentality where, people like, being an author, that you can't make a living off that. That's everyone, knows that, and it's like, no, that's not true. Like, you can. But you have to be proactive, and I think if you go into it thinking, even if you get a book deal, thinking, this is it, I can quit my day job and my publisher's going to take care of it all, that isn't going to happen because of the nature of publishing, where I work on, I don't know how many books a year, and the cycle is relentless. We're always on to the next book, and we love our books and we promote them, but it's for a short time, and then we're on to another book, which is not entirely true. Like Sammy, for example, we published multiple books with her, so we're growing her over time, but it's because she took it, embraced it, amplified it all, that there has to be some level of motivation, self-motivation as well. Okay. Okay, I didn't know she was with you, with Hachette. So that's amazing. I'm familiar with her work, and it's beautiful work. Like I love her illustrations. I love everything about what she does.
If you ever wanted her, because she does take workshops, and I would also be happy to talk to her. She would be a brilliant person to get in to talk to your students. I don't know how you work, if you have physical classes or whatever, but she could run a workshop where she would do an illustration workshop. But I don't know if she's ever done a talk on her experience of being published, and because she doesn't know any different. I always say to her, her journey is not necessarily typical, because she did quite well quite quickly, and she'd be a really interesting person, and she's absolutely lovely. So
perfect. Look, if you want, you can sort of chat to her. I would do like a similar interview with her, where we would discuss like her experience and her background, and what she's achieved and all of that, and like kind of giving children and teens kind of a blueprint or like a bit of hope about.
She would be a good one. If you reached out to Hannah or Kate, they would put you in touch with Sammy's publicist, and I think she would be really happy to chat to you.
Okay, no problem. I will. So what do I need to do? Reach out to her.
Hannah.
Yeah. Okay.
And she'll put you with her publicist at Hachette is Georgie, and Georgie would set up an interview with you and Sammy, because I'm sure she would be happy to chat.
Oh, fantastic. I did approach her about maybe teaching a workshop, but she said she wasn't teaching at all this year. But if it's an interview, it might be a different situation.
Might be different. Yeah. I think, she did so many workshops this year, and she's
over it.
Over it, but also she's working on her next book, and we need her to be working on it. So she's doing that. But I'm sure she would be happy to chat to you. Okay. But Georgie would know her schedule and
what she's when even if it's in the new year. I mean, I guess my sole purpose here is to help teens and children understand the world of publishing. So I would love to. I'll get in touch with Hannah after this, and I will see what Geordie says, and
and hopefully Sammy has good things to say. But I think she would. She's done so well, and she's young. I think she'd be pretty relatable for. That would be my chat to Sammy as someone who's done it.
Okay, I will. I'll chat to her.
I don't even think Sammy knows how good she is in some ways. Like, I don't even know that she knows how much more she does than a lot of other people. So it'd be interesting.
Yeah, I've seen her posts on LinkedIn. They're very impressive. 25,000 children she's been in front of in terms of the schools. Yeah,
and she drives a lot of it. So, good person to talk to.
Wow, that's amazing. I think she's a great one, because she's an illustrator, but she's also an author. Like, she's double, right? So that is in itself, having two skills, like to be able to draw it and then also write about it is just, amazing. And then she's got her degree as well in, natural... Was it
history illustration?
So
which they teach it. It doesn't exist, her degree anymore. She did it at Newcastle Uni, and it very sadly no longer exists
because there's not enough. There's not enough traction in the enough people, or
you would have to ask her why. I mean, she really campaigned for them to keep that course, and a lot of other people did too. So.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah. Look, these things happen because, adults are different. Like, even when I try to teach adults, they've got their own commitments. Like, they have a lot going on. And so teaching children is a lot easier for me because, they have...
A captive audience.
Yeah, they have to be there because they've got school and they've got English and they need to improve their writing and, all this kind of thing. But, like, with adults, it's very, like, they drive it themselves, and sometimes things can get in the way. One of the other things I wanted to touch on with you very quickly was AI and like, I know you've probably been asked this a million times, but what do you guys use AI for in Hachette? Do you embrace AI, or for what do you think of authors using AI in their writing, and how does that sort of...
There is a company line on this that I don't want to say the wrong thing about.
Oh, is there? Okay.
Yeah. Which I actually probably... Well, obviously we put human creativity above AI. We don't use AI in any real way in our systems, but we're aware. I don't know. I don't want to say...
Don't worry. Let's move on. But
yes. Certainly we are not using ChatGPT to write blurbs or anything like that. It's all human creativity in that. Okay. In terms of what authors do, yeah, I think let's move on because I don't want to say that.
Okay, let's move on.
But we're not working with any AI companies or anything like that. I know some other publishers are. We're aware of it and we're not ignoring it, but it's not something that we use in our day-to-day publishing.
Okay, that's fine. Sorry if I overstepped there.
That's okay.
Okay. No, that's fine. And that's okay. I'll just move on from that question. All right, so then we've got, I guess, where do you see the future of children's publishing in the next couple of years? Where do you see it kind of heading? And do you guys kind of forecast your your future? What you think will engage children in the future? Will it be the same as what it is now, or you think TikTok and there'll be a new social media platform where you'll have to look at that and then sort of evolve your business? And like, how do you kind of constantly adapt to the changes?
Yeah, I think, well, TikTok we have embraced. It's been great for books and for reading, and it's I mean, in some ways almost too great in that it's taking up so much shelf space in certain retailers now and pushing out other books. But it's been really great for the profile of books. We feel confident about children's publishing. I feel confident about children's publishing. It's more in terms of trends and where that will go is always, I mean, we will always be competing for with screen time, and that's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
The thing I'm most interested in is the middle grade space and what will happen there, because it's so dominated at the moment by particular authors and names and series like Anne Doe and Dave Pilkey and that very kind of male humour series kind of, and Bluey, very dominated by those same names every single year. And I would love to see what it is that busts that category open and yeah.
Interesting.
So we've had Nevermore just it's one of the few, it's very hard to break out a middle grade series at the moment, and so I'm curious about what it is that will do that and watch that pretty closely. Graphic novels are obviously growing and continuing to grow. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
No,
or not.
It definitely gives
different for different.
Yeah. No, the other thing, like, I guess when you mention the middle grade space and the series and things like that, do you, I know that lately people have been saying, I mean, in the industry, the word is that you don't release series unless they're fully complete. Like, is that true? Or do you think, have you released one book at a time, or how do you...
As if they've already written.
What, sorry?
You don't release series unless you've got the books in the series, is that?
Yeah, I just want to know because, you know, I personally, I'm writing a series at the moment, but do I need to finish it before I hand it in to, say,
No, that isn't something that I've really come across.
Oh.
We are often acquiring on, say, the manuscript for a first book and synopses for following books in the series. But series are hard to do because, for many complicated reasons, it's hard. It's hard because if you put a first book out and it doesn't hit certain benchmarks in certain retailers, then they won't take a second or third. So it's a huge commitment from a publisher to take on a series, which I would like to see change. It's hard. But no, it wouldn't make any difference if say it was a trilogy at the time of submission. It wouldn't make a difference necessarily. You can try putting out two, but that doesn't necessarily work. So that is not something that is on my radar as being an issue.
Oh, okay. But it's a commitment.
To take on a series?
Yeah, it's a commitment from the publisher to take on a series rather than that. Do you prefer just just standalone books? Is that something that's easier?
It's not necessarily a preference. If we were really excited about a series, then that's what we're all looking for. It's just hard to make one work. So if there was one that we were super excited about that was super commercial, then a series is great. That's a successful series is what everybody wants, but it has to really be the right thing, if that makes sense.
So when you say it has to be commercial, I know that, okay, so I was at an author talk a while ago, and I was she basically said, I won't say her name in case that's not the right thing to do. Anyway, so basically she said that
I'm going to want to know.
She basically went on to say that if you are looking to make a living out of your writing, now I don't know if this is true or not, but you go down to say that the larger sort of department stores and go to Kmart or Big W and look at the fiction in those stores, and usually that is commercial fiction or fiction that is going to sell a large amount. Is that true, or is it? I mean, is that what you call commercial fiction? Stuff that's available in the larger department stores like David Jones and Kmart and Big W and all of that, or is it? I mean, what do you define as commercial?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't use that as the definition of commercial.
Yeah.
But commercial does mean that DDS, we call it the DDS discount department store, so Kmart, Target and Big W. If it's commercial, you would hope that those are the retailers who would take it. So really broad appeal. Commercial is very broad appeal, not so much literary. So your more literary standalone fiction is going to more likely be in independent bookstores or chains like Dimmicks. But I wouldn't say that the definition is books that go into the DDS. It's more commercial, that the DDS will take commercial fiction, but commercial fiction would also be in independent bookstores and chains. So really broad appeal.
Broad appeal, okay.
Yeah, broad appeal rather than... And also because the nature of what, particularly Big W, what they are buying, I think a lot more people shop at Big W for books now than used to. So the customer is changing, and it's not purely commercial. I think they're taking more risks and taking on more books that would have once been considered literary as independent bookstores close or cost of living, and people want cheaper books, basically.
Yeah.
You look to Big W, and that is in some way informing what they're buying. So I think it's probably not quite right to look at what's in Big W and just say it's in Big W, it must be commercial. I think it's more about broad appeal.
Okay. I know I'm jumping a bit, but something just came to my mind, and this often happens when it's sitting in my subconscious, and then it comes to my consciousness after you say something. So basically, I understand in the Australian, when you're trying to sell in the Australian market, particularly to schools, the books have to be connected in some way to the curriculum. How accurate is that? Is that how I mean, would you recommend for writers to look at the Australian curriculum and be aware of it, and then would that help book sales if your book, if the book had some elements of, say, HSC modules or something along those lines?
Again, it's a bit the same as not writing to trends. I wouldn't try and trick the system by writing to a particular curriculum theme or module. And most of our books can be worked. We'll do teachers' notes for.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Can be related to the curriculum, but they haven't been written with that in mind. And I think I'd be something that was written with that in mind, purely to get published. Do you know what I mean? So we, for example, publish a book called Wandy by Fable Parrot, which is about a dingo who was picked up by an eagle and dropped in based on a true story, dropped in a backyard, and this dingo, Wandy, became quite famous and is now at a dingo sanctuary in Victoria, and Fable is really, really interested in dingo preservation. Anyway, I'm not selling the book. It's a really beautifully written book about Wandy and his experience of being taken from his mother and his family and dropped in this backyard. And yeah, it's a really gorgeous book. It's now on the New South Wales curriculum, but there's nothing necessarily in that you would think was a curriculum book, but it's being taught and kids absolutely love it, and Fable gets letters all the time about it. And another a book of ours, Pip Harry, Augustin Jones, also based on a true story about a boy who's going blind, and he has a friend who kind of takes him around school and they help each other. And again, it's on the curriculum, but there's nothing overt there that is a curriculum book. So I would just be wary of writing to a curriculum as a way to try and be published.
Okay.
It's a long answer, but yeah. I think if you're writing it is a cliche, but if you're writing what you love and what's authentic to you and telling the story you want to tell, you're much better off doing that than trying to write to a curriculum or a trend.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Sorry, losing my voice. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I think you mentioned that, and I resonate with that as a writer as well. Like, just write what you want to write, and write what's close to your heart, and like what you can say and talk about authentically in your writing. So no, that's great. Look, I think that's been really insightful. I guess for me, I've often been to writing conferences and people have said, get a publicist. It's the best thing you can do for yourself, and da-da-da-da. And I'm like, okay, I'm an author. And publicists generally cost anywhere between $6,000 upwards to $15,000 for like a 9-week stint of work. So as authors who are trying to promote themselves and as part of the publisher's broader sort of marketing and sales and PR plan, and they want to kind of step in, and just like Sammy did, would you say that are there resources that you would recommend for authors in terms of trying to get their book out there, or in terms of publicity, or like what would you say to that? Like, do you think that because
once your book has been accepted by a
Hello,
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear
you. You have a manuscript that's been accepted by a publisher?
Yeah.
To get your own publicist?
Yeah. That's some advice that I've gotten previously. Is that something that's relevant, or do you think the publisher will handle all of that? And
it sounds like not great advice to me. It sounds a bit bonkers. No, sorry. No, that's probably... No. I actually don't work with any authors who have their own publicist.
Okay.
Yeah, so the publisher will do some publicity around your book, again at different levels, but no, I would go the Sammy model and be proactive in other ways rather than paying a publicist to do I'm not sure what. And the other tricky thing with children's is there are not a lot of, we have to get pretty creative with the channels, the publicity channels that are open to us. We do a lot more podcasts than we used to. We do Magpies magazines, that's education. We'll do radio interviews, and we will pitch you for festivals. And I don't know why you'd pay another publicist to be doing the same things.
Yeah.
I think the things for an author to work on are more about getting into the community, signing up with a speaker's agent and getting into schools, saying yes to whatever the publisher asks you to do, rather than spending the money that none of us have on a freelance.
Exactly. I was like,
I don't mean to be rude about it. I've just not really ever heard that.
well, I was in London doing it. I was at a conference in, it's called Festival of Writing, I believe. And I just, that was the advice I received. But I think it might have been.
Maybe it's a UK thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it is. And also, like, you guys move on to the next book pretty quickly. So then. And then, like, what happens to the publicity element when you're starting to focus on another book? So for the writer who's trying to constantly kind of publicize their own book or be part of you think being part of the community is enough to sort of promote?
Be active on social media without making it feel like it's your job to be on social media. You can be active there. A publisher would still be pitching you for things like festivals. So it's not, you've got your publicity on release and then you become part of our stable of authors that we pitch you for different things.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, and then I think you do things like turn up to the CBCA, definitely join a speakers agency that can book you into schools and you make money for each school visit, but then you're getting exposure to teachers, parents, librarians, kids. So there are things that you can do yourself. And again, Sammy would be a really good person to talk to, but because if you have the understanding that a publisher will do publicity on release, and then if you do have to generate your own momentum after that to some extent, and understanding that that's just part of the publishing cycle, but that there are those other things you could do, I would do those above paying someone. Yeah.
And when you're receiving query letters, what do you look for in a query letter? Like, I know the basic structure of a query letter, and I know that we have to write one when we're trying to get our book into the hands of a publisher. But we also have to write one when we're trying to get an agent. So there's there's query letters for publishers and then query letters for agents. And sort of what does your team look for when they open up a query letter? Like, and the like, is the right length of a manuscript for children's fiction, like, say, 50K or?
You know what? I don't care about stuff like that.
Oh.
I think you can. When you do those conferences and things, people can tell you, maybe not so much anymore, but like, the manuscript has to be formatted in this way, and it has to be this many words, and it has to be in this font. I don't care. I really only care. I really only care that the story sounds amazing, the characters sound amazing, that place for it on my list because I've got a gap for whatever it is, picture book, whatever. Other publishers might be different, but I really don't. All I'm interested in is this a great story? Does the pitch sound incredible and I want to read it? That's it. That's what I care about.
Oh, okay. So it's got to be interesting enough for you to want to pick it up, and you don't want to put
a really great pitch. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, that makes it easier for me. So you don't care about the sorry. Oh my goodness. So oftentimes when you go to the bookstore and say children's fiction, in the children's fiction section, if a book is thicker, and say has more word count, then it takes up more space on the shelf in terms of selling it and, you know, for people, for visibility. But you say that word count is not really what you're looking at. You're looking for an amazing story, so it doesn't matter how long it is.
No, I mean, I'm also looking that, you know, where it sits on the list. You've written, you know, if you've written middle grade or YA and you know what it's comparable to on my list already, it's a good idea to research the publishers, what they are publishing already and where it would sit on their list. Like I see Nevermore or alongside Pip Harry, or that's all important, but the most important thing is it's a great pitch. And I don't word count. It varies so greatly. I mean, Jess's Nevermore books are really long and fabulous, and so is Harry Potter. I think I'm just picked one up. It's like 520 pages, and that's middle grade. And then, you know,
she's an example of a successful series, Nevermore.
Oh, incredibly successful. Like, I'd say one of like the most successful middle grade series in a long time in Australia. And I've picked up Pip Harry. It's 280 pages. That's also middle grade. It varies. There's no one set answer to these things. If the book is good enough, if the writing is good enough, a publisher will find a place for it on their list. It just
has to get through the
I get frustrated when people tell emerging authors there are all these rules, because publishers are just people. Everybody is different. Maybe other publishers are really focused on word count and formatting and things like that. I just want to know that it's a great story with great characters, and that I want to read it.
Oh. And so what's your favorite sort of character? What's one of your favorite books that you guys have published?
I love all my babies. I really love our standalone literary middle grade list. I think is incredibly strong. We've published Pip Harry and Jane Godwin, Zana Freylon. I quite like contemporary fiction, but I also we published Tigest Gurma, which is a YA Black Vampire series, her first book this year, and I adore that. So
wow.
I think we're not always publishing about in terms of what we love. It's also what we know the market will love. And I in any category, in any genre, if there's an interesting fresh hook and the pitch is really exciting and compelling, I'm going to read it and I'm going to get excited about it. So I think I'm really blessed with all of the authors I publish. I'm really excited about who I'm publishing next year, and I wouldn't publish them if I didn't love them. So it's hard to pick. Pick
one. Yeah,
I love Fable. I love Jane. I love Pip. Yeah,
wow.
All of them.
And
Jess, obviously.
Well, when you say what the market will love, do you look at like Nielsen book data to see book sales, or how do you determine?
Yeah. We are obsessed with BookScan, so we're definitely always looking at that. We're looking at what other publishers are publishing, but it's not always about sales. Sometimes it's about other forms of recognition, like awards. And with children's, we might not get initial sales when a book's first released, but then it might be shortlisted for a CBCA award or another award, and that will give us another bump of sales. So we're looking at a lot of different ways or maybe that book can go out into schools and you don't necessarily see those education sales on BookScan. So there are lots of different metrics.
Oh, okay. Oh, so the school sales, they're not on BookScan.
No, not always. Not always captured on BookScan.
Oh, okay. But sometimes if you're a bookstore owner and you have like several accounts with schools, where does that data go? And do you have access to that data from bookstores?
If it's a retail sale and it's a retailer, I've got a meeting at 12:30 just to.
Yes, got it. No, that's fine. That's fine. I'll be out of your hair soon. Sorry, it's just so interesting. It's just so interesting, and I just have so much to learn. I have so many questions. So
there's just so many different answers to everything too.
Yeah.
Yes, obviously, if schools are buying from Booktopia or from a retailer, then those sales are captured in BookScan. But we also sell direct to book clubs like Scholastic Book Club or ASO, and those sales are not necessarily captured in BookScan.
Okay. All right. Well, interesting. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I know you've. Thank you so much for all of your answers and all of that. And I will definitely get in touch with Hannah so that we can maybe get Sammy to do an interview as well, and so thank you so much for this. Now I just want to be clear about where this information will go before we finish our call. So this will basically just go, I will try and take notes on this, and then the information and maybe some quotes will go into my sort of author accelerator program, and I will send to you what I'm going to sort of share if that's necessary. Otherwise, if you're happy with what we've talked about today, then I'll just go ahead and sort of maybe make some short sort of video or something to do, some content related to this that will help my students. And that will go.
I mean, I would be interested just to see it. So if you did want to send it, that would be great.
Yeah, no problem. So I will send it once I figured out what to do. I'll probably try to do something on Canva or make some slides and do this as a voiceover or something like that.
Okay.
And then that will go into my program and, as a resource for students who want to learn about the sort of YA and children's middle grade book publishing and what it involves and how publishers choose their manuscripts and whether to go with an agent or whether to talk to a publisher directly and all of that. I'll
just a disclaimer that other publishers might be different, but this is me at Hachette and my take on it.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely fine. So I'll be getting opinions from a range of different sort of members of industry, for example, there'll be authors, there'll be teachers, there'll be a lot of different people. But what my aim is to create a resource where students can sort of delve into whichever part they want to. And if they're interested in writing as a career, then this will be a nice resource for them. And
that sounds great.
Yeah, so that's basically what I'm doing. So just to make it clear, and then so thank you so much for your time. And if I have if I have a book that I want to share with you, or one of my students writes something, would I then get in touch with you again, or how would that work, or would that be?
Yeah, if you want to get in touch again, or through publicity again, then that would be great.
Okay, perfect. So if I have a book that I want to sort of share with you, I'll write my sort of query letter and do the process and send it through. Then is that?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, thank you so much.
No worries.
And
good luck.
Thank you so much. Have a good one. Okay.
You too. Bye.
Bye.